I pulled my rental car into the economy parking lot at Denver International Airport, checking my watch. I was buzzing with that specific kind of nervous energy you get when you're about to pull off a big surprise. I'd flown in from Phoenix a day early for my daughter's 30th birthday. It was supposed to be a celebration, a happy weekend. But as I dragged my suitcase through the rows of cars, cutting across the lot to get to the terminal entrance, something made me stop. It was a faded blue Toyota Corolla parked near the back fence. The windows were completely fogged up with condensation. I knew that car. It was my daughter's. I walked closer, confused. Why would Emily be parked out here in the freezing cold? I wiped a circle on the passenger side glass and peered in. My heart didn't just stop, it shattered. My daughter, Emily, was curled up in the back seat. Tucked under her arm, sharing a thin fleece blanket, were my twin granddaughters, Chloe and Mia. They were sleeping in a freezing car in the middle of November. I banged on the glass. Emily jolted awake. When her eyes focused on me, I saw an expression I hope no parent ever has to see on their child's face. It wasn't just fear. It was pure, crushing shame. She cracked the door open. The cold air rushed in. The girls were still asleep, their breath visible in the chilly air. "Mom?" she whispered, her voice raspy. "What on earth is going on?" I asked, my hands shaking so hard I had to grip the doorframe. "Where is your house? Where is Jason? Why are you sleeping in a car with my granddaughters?" She looked down at her lap, refusing to meet my eyes. It's a mess, Mom. A mess. You are homeless in a parking lot. Get the girls. We are going inside. Now." 40 minutes later, we were in a booth at a diner near the airport highway. The girls were devouring waffles like they hadn't eaten a hot meal in days. Emily sat opposite me, nursing a black coffee, looking gaunt and exhausted. She looked 10 years older than she had the last time we FaceTimed. "Talk," I said. "Start from the beginning." She took a shaky breath. "Jason left me 4 months ago." "Okay," I said, trying to stay calm. "Divorce is hard, Emily, but it doesn't explain this." "He didn't just leave, Mom. He took everything. The house, the savings, the college funds, everything." "The house was in both your names," I argued. "He can't just take it." "He made me sign papers last year," she said, her voice trembling. "He told me it was for liability protection because of his new business venture. He said it was safer to have the deed in his name only. I trusted him. I signed." I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. One day, I came home from dropping the girls at school, and the locks were changed. There was a process server waiting on the porch. Jason filed a restraining order against me. "A restraining order? You?" I almost laughed. Emily was the gentlest soul I knew. She wouldn't hurt a fly. His lawyer painted me as hysterical, unstable, dangerous. They claimed I was threatening him. That is insane. They had proof, Mom, or things that looked like proof, text messages I don't remember sending, witnesses I've barely met claiming I was screaming at him in public, and his mother, Victoria, backed him up on everything. She testified that she feared for her son's safety. Of course, Victoria. Jason's mother was a shark in a Chanel suit, a wealthy corporate consultant who had never thought Emily was good enough for her son. "So what about the money? The $200,000 from your grandmother's inheritance that you put into his company?" Emily's face crumbled. "Gone. Jason handled the accounts. The day before he kicked me out, he transferred everything to a holding company owned by his mother. He stole it? They called it a repayment of a business loan. I have no access to the accounts, Mom. I have no money for a lawyer. I went to the custody hearing 2 weeks ago representing myself. I lost." I stared at her, horrified. "You lost custody?" "I only have supervised visits on weekends," she whispered quietly so the girls wouldn't hear. "But I have the girls right now because Jason is on a business trip and his mother didn't want to watch them. The court says I can't get them back permanently until I prove stable housing and employment." "But you can't get housing without money," I realized. "And Jason made sure I have 0 credit and no cash. I'm working part-time at a warehouse, showering at the YMCA. The girls think this is a camping adventure." I looked at my granddaughters, happily oblivious, sticky with syrup. Then I looked at my daughter, broken and shivering in a booth. I felt a rage rising in me that I hadn't felt in decades. "Where are these supposed to be supervised visits?" I asked. "At Victoria's estate, with her supervising. She takes notes, Mom. Every time I hug them, she writes it down. It's humiliating." "This ends today," I said, sliding my credit card on the table. "Mom, you don't understand," Emily said, wiping her eyes. "Victoria has millions. She has a team of sharks for lawyers. I can't fight them." I reached across the table and took her hand. It was ice cold. "Maybe you can't," I said, my voice dropping to a low, dangerous growl. "But we can." "Finish your coffee," I told her. "Pack up the car. You and the girls are coming to my hotel, and then we're going to war." That night, after I tucked Chloe and Mia into the hotel bed, watching them sleep peacefully for the first time in weeks, I didn't sleep. I sat at the small desk in the corner and opened my laptop. They had money? Fine. They had lawyers? Great. But I had 30 years of experience as a project manager, and I knew how to mobilize a team. I started making calls. First, I called my old friend Robert back in Phoenix, a retired corporate attorney. Then, I called an old contact, Detective Miller, who I'd helped out with a community project years ago. "Robert," I said when he picked up, "I need the name of the absolute best family law shark in Denver. I don't care what they cost. I need someone who eats bullies for breakfast." He listened to the story, silent for a long time. "Margaret," he said finally, "this sounds like fraud. Organized asset stripping. You need Samantha Cross." Samantha Cross was a legend. She specialized in high-conflict divorces involving financial abuse. Her retainer cost more than my first car, but I wired the money the next morning. When we met Samantha, she was terrifying in the best way. She sat in her glass-walled office, listened to Emily's story, and didn't interrupt once. "Here is what we are dealing with," Samantha said, leaning forward. "Jason and his mother have executed a textbook case of financial coercive control mixed with parental alienation. They stripped you of resources to make you look unfit, then used the legal system to trap you." She looked at Emily. "We are going to prove it, but I need ammunition. Do you have business records?" "Jason locked me out of the digital accounts," Emily said. "We'll subpoena them," Samantha countered. "What about the mental health claims? They say you're unstable. Prove them wrong." "I was seeing a therapist last year," Emily admitted. "Dr. Evans. But it wasn't because I was crazy. It was because the stress of the business and Jason's mood swings was overwhelming." "Perfect," Samantha smiled tightly. "Therapy records showing you were proactively managing stress are the best defense against claims of instability. We need those records. And," Samantha added, looking at me, "we need a forensic accountant. If they move that money, we will find it." For the next 2 weeks, I became a woman possessed. I rented a fully furnished 2-bedroom townhouse in a nice suburb of Denver. I paid 6 months of rent up front so the court couldn't question Emily's housing stability. I enrolled the girls in the local elementary school. Meanwhile, Emily reached out to a former client who ran a marketing firm. He was shocked to hear she was unemployed and hired her on the spot for a remote design position. Suddenly, we had stable housing and stable income, but we still needed to destroy the lies. I drove to the co-working space where Emily and Jason had run their business. I tracked down their former office manager, Sarah. "Emily unstable?" Sarah scoffed when I asked her. "Please, Emily was the glue holding that place together. Jason was the nightmare. He would throw things when deals fell through. I saw him smash a laptop once because the Wi-Fi was slow." "Would you testify to that?" I asked. "In a heartbeat," she said. Then came the dirt on Jason's mother, Victoria. My friend Detective Miller did some digging. It turned out Victoria's consulting empire had some cracks. She had been flagged twice for suspicious transaction reporting regarding overseas accounts. No charges, but smoke usually means fire. But the smoking gun came from the forensic accountant we hired, a guy named David who looked like a librarian but hunted money like a bloodhound. It took him 3 weeks. It wasn't a business loan, David told us, laying out a spreadsheet that looked like a spider web. Look here. He pointed to a transaction dated the day before Jason filed for the restraining order. The $200,000 inheritance Emily invested transferred to an account owned by Victoria, labeled consulting fees. But there is no invoice, no contract, just a dump of cash. And it gets worse, he continued. Over the last year, Jason has been siphoning company revenue into personal accounts, then transferring it to his mother. Small amounts, $500 here, $1,000 there. But in total, they drained nearly $350,000. This is embezzlement, I said, stunned. They were stealing from the marital assets to make sure Emily left with nothing. Exactly, David said. And since they used wire transfers, it's wire fraud. Samantha filed an emergency motion immediately. We presented the new housing, the job offer, Dr. Evans' records proving Emily was mentally sound, and the witness statements from the office manager. Jason's lawyer, a slick guy named Mr. Sterling, tried to fight back. He argued that Emily's stability was artificial because I was funding it. He argued the girls were safer with Jason's mother, Victoria. But the real turning point was the supervised visitation. Per the court order, Emily had to visit the girls at Victoria's massive estate twice a week. Victoria would sit in the corner with a notebook, scribbling furiously, watching like a hawk. "She writes lies, Mom," Emily told me one night. "I saw her notepad. She wrote, 'Mother appears manic,' just because I was laughing with Chloe." "Two can play at that game," I said. The next visit, Emily wore a small, discreet recording device, legal in Colorado as long as one party consents, and since it was in a common area with notice posted, we were in the clear. I listened to the tape later. It broke my heart and boiled my blood at the same time. Audio. "Mommy, look at my drawing!" Mia's happy voice. "That's beautiful, baby. Is that a horse?" Emily's calm, loving voice. "Yeah, can we go to the park later?" "Not today, sweetie, but soon." The kids sounded happy, safe, and loved. There was zero tension from Emily. But when we subpoenaed Victoria's visitation notes for that exact day, they read, "Mother exhibited erratic behavior. Children appeared frightened and withdrawn. Mother raised her voice aggressively." We had them. We had the financial theft. We had the false testimony. We had the fabricated visitation reports. Samantha didn't just file the evidence with the family court. She submitted the financial report to the IRS and the district attorney's fraud division. The court date was set for early February. The day we walked into that courtroom, Jason was sitting there with his mother. They looked smug. Victoria was adjusting her pearl necklace, looking at Emily like she was something she scraped off her shoe. They had no idea what we were about to drop on them. The courtroom was suffocatingly quiet. Judge Harrison, a stern man with wire-rimmed glasses and a reputation for zero tolerance, sat high on the bench. Jason looked relaxed, almost bored. His lawyer, Mr. Sterling, gave a confident opening statement, painting my daughter as a fragile, unstable woman who needed help, not custody. Then Samantha Cross stood up. She didn't look at the judge. She looked right at Jason. "Mr. Miller," she began, calling Jason to the stand, "you testified that you transferred $200,000 from the joint business account to your mother's holding company as a loan repayment. Is that correct?" "Yes," Jason said smoothly. "Where is the loan agreement?" "It was a verbal agreement," Jason shrugged. "Family doesn't need paperwork." "A verbal agreement for nearly $250,000? Samantha raised an eyebrow. "Interesting. And why did the business need a loan? According to the P&L sheets, revenue was up 40%. "Emily was spending recklessly," Jason lied, not missing a beat. "I had to protect our assets." Samantha walked back to her table and picked up a stack of papers. These are the bank statements for the 6 months prior to the separation. They show Emily's personal spending consisted of groceries, children's clothes, and gas. She slammed another stack down. "Meanwhile, your personal credit card shows charges for a luxury ski trip to Aspen, a $5,000 watch, and VIP concert tickets. totaling over $40,000 in 3 months. Jason shifted in his seat. I I was networking for the business. Let's talk about the day of the transfer, Samantha pressed. You claimed Emily consented to moving the money, but we pulled your phone records. You didn't call or text her once that day. In fact, she was at a parent-teacher conference while you were at the bank. How did she consent, Jason? Telepathy? Jason's face turned a blotchy red. I don't remember the exact details. Convenient, Samantha said. Now, let's address the text messages you claim proved Emily was threatening you. She projected an image onto the court screen. These are the screenshots you provided to get the restraining order. Our digital forensics team analyzed the metadata. These weren't sent from an iPhone. They were created on a graphic design program on a desktop computer. The timestamps don't even match the cellular network logs. The courtroom gasped. Even the court reporter looked up. You forged evidence to frame the mother of your children, didn't you? No, that's... Jason stammered, looking at his mother for help. Victoria was staring straight ahead, her face pale. And finally, Samantha said, delivering the knockout blow, the visitation logs. She played the audio recording of Emily playing with the girls, the laughter, the sweetness. Then she put Victoria's handwritten notes on the screen. Mother aggressive, children crying. Your Honor, Samantha turned to the judge, this is not a custody dispute. This is a coordinated conspiracy to defraud my client and alienate her from her children using the court system as a weapon. Mr. Sterlin tried to object, but Judge Harrison held up hand. Sit down, counselor, the judge snapped. He looked at Jason, then at Victoria in the gallery. I have sat on this bench for 20 years. I have rarely seen a case of abuse this calculated. He turned to Emily. Ms. Miller, I have reviewed Dr. Evans' records and your current employment status. You are capable, stable, and frankly, owed an apology. The gavel came down with a sound like a gunshot. I am vacating the previous custody order immediately. Ms. Miller is granted full physical custody effective now. Mr. Miller's visitation is suspended pending a psychological evaluation. Jason's jaw dropped. Furthermore, the judge continued, staring daggers at Jason, I am ordering the immediate return of the $350,000 removed from the marital assets. If the funds are not returned within 7 days, I will authorize the seizure of property. And finally, the judge said, organizing his papers, I am referring the transcripts of this trial, specifically regarding the financial transfers and the forged digital evidence, to the district attorney's office for potential criminal prosecution. We are adjourned. Emily collapsed into my arms. She wasn't crying sad tears anymore. She was shaking with relief. We walked out of the courtroom, and the social worker brought Chloe and Mia out from the waiting room. Mommy, they screamed, running at her. Emily dropped to her knees, scooping them both up, burying her face in their hair. I've got you. I've got you. Are we going to Grandma's hotel? Chloe asked. No, baby. Emily smiled, tears streaming down her face. We're going home. 3 months later, Victoria was indicted for wire fraud and tax evasion. Her high-powered lawyers managed to keep her out of prison, but the fines and legal fees decimated her empire. Jason wasn't so lucky. Faced with the undeniable proof of the forged text messages, a felony in our state, he took a plea deal to avoid jail time. He has a permanent criminal record and is on a repayment plan that will take him the rest of his life. Emily got the money back. She used it to launch her own design studio, this time with her name on the deed and me balancing the books. I didn't go back to Phoenix. I rented a condo 10 minutes away from them. I picked the girls up from school on Tuesdays and Thursdays. One evening, about a year after that freezing day in the airport parking lot, Emily and I were sitting on my balcony, watching the sun dip behind the Rockies. The girls were inside, playing a game. Emily turned to me, swirling her wine glass. I never thanked you. she said quietly. Not properly. I don't have to, I said. Yes, I do. Mom, if you hadn't flown in that day, if you hadn't made those calls, I would have lost them. I believed what Jason said about me. I thought I was the problem. That is what abusers do, I told her, squeezing her hand. They make you doubt your own reality. But I know you. I raised you. I knew who you were even when you forgot. Inside, I heard a crash of wooden blocks and a burst of giggles. Grandma can play, Mia yelled. Duty calls, I smiled, standing up. I walked inside. The girls were rebuilding a Jenga tower that had just toppled. Don't let it fall this time, Grandma, Chloe warned me seriously. I sat down on the carpet, crossing my legs. I looked at the tower, then at my daughter, standing in the doorway, smiling for the first time in years, without a shadow behind her eyes. I won't, I promised them. I won't let anything fall ever again. And I meant it.